Hello and welcome back to the Villa podcast. It's the day after the night before, and I'm here as ever with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Aston Villa won, Manchester City won. I don't think I've been this buzzing after a draw, mate, for the longest time. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, very good, mate. Yep, it was very nice. It was a relief. We sort of both said in the preview, I was like, look, as long as we don't lose. I mean, 9-0s have been in fashion recently, haven't they? So I was like, as long as we don't lose sort of anywhere 4 upwards, I think we'd be happy. So a draw is brilliant, and that performance was excellent, mate. It's a performance that can really turn tides. So let's hope that's exactly what it was.
Absolutely, man. And I think things are getting pretty toxic, and both you and I have kind of questioned whether Stevie's position was tenable if and should things carry on. And I think a point at home against Manchester City, especially in the manner of which we performed, and of course there were so many refereeing controversies in this game, which I'm sure we'll get onto, mate. But to not only put up a fight, I think this is massive for Stevie, isn't it, mate? Just the manner of this. I almost said victory then, because it felt like that in so many ways, didn't it? It was a hard-fought point that I think I'm buzzing about, mate. Honestly, I can't stop thinking about that performance.
Yeah, it was brilliant, mate. It was like, I think it's one where we just have to hope that, as I said, it turns things around. And I said in the post-match after our last game, I was like, the best outcome to this managerial situation is that Steven Gerrard turns it around. Yeah. It's the best outcome for everybody. It's way easier for the club financially. It saves face, it saves money. It's like everything. The best outcome is that Stevie remains manager of Aston Villa, that he gets it right. And I don't think we can get too carried away just yet. It was a brilliant start. I don't really know what shoe to wear it on, because there was a real game plan yesterday, and it was a lot better in terms of there was an identity to our performance. But I'm almost like, when you play against Manchester City, you're almost forced to play that way, if that makes sense. You're almost forced to sit back, to soak it up, to play on the counter, to be aggressive, to be brave in possession at home, because really that's the only way that you can go about. Do you see the point that I'm trying to make, mate?
Yeah.
When you play against a side that's dominant on the ball, that you know that you aren't going to beat face to face in terms of possession, and you're not going to be able to outthink them and outwork. You just have to be brave. You have to run a lot. You have to be clever when you're defending, hit on the counter. And so I don't want to get too carried away in terms of Stevie's done it. Stevie's found the game plan. We're going to play every team on the counter and stuff like that, because it is very much dictated by our opponents. But the water test is Leicester, man. My God, that game is colossal. Because we can really, if we get a win in that game, and there's every chance that we could, it changes the mood completely going into the international break. And so, I can't emphasize how big. I'm really looking forward to previewing that one with you, mate, because that game's huge.
It is, man. And speaking of big games and just how you can consume them in general, this video today is sponsored by the wonderful people at OneFootball. Dan, we mentioned it in the last preview. OneFootball have exclusive rights within the UK to broadcast Italian Serie A matches. Now, before the game, there was an absolute corker, mate. Napoli versus Lazio. Napoli won that game 2-1 ahead of what is going to be a very important week coming up with Champions League, and Liverpool are coming to town. How good, mate. OneFootball, first of all, not only for notifications minute by minute throughout the game, buzz notifications when players score, all the big moments, you get rewarded. But being able to watch these games just at the touch of your hand, mate. I was out before our game, and I had this game up on my phone while I was out with some mates, and it was such a wonderful way to consume the game. And it's fantastic that they're sponsoring the channel yet again, mate.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Those goal notifications you mentioned, I was watching the game when I was out yesterday in a pub, and I knew we'd scored before the goal went in. And I was like, mate, it hasn't even happened on TV, and the goal notification has come through. So I actually had to mute them. But yeah, it's a great app, mate. As we said for the longest time, that it's something that we've both used previously. So it's a dream to work with these guys, because it's an app that we both have and we've both used for a number of different things within the footballing sphere. So yeah, if you could hit that link in the description, download it, you'd be helping us out. And more importantly, guys, it will help you out as well. So I couldn't recommend it enough.
all you guys need to, you can set up that you're a Villa fan, and every piece of content that they publish, whether that is a preview, minute by minute updates, you will get notified, and it is the best way to find out about what's happening. It's better than checking Twitter. It's better than checking other apps. Genuinely, OneFootball, use the link in the description. It helps Dan and I out more than you guys could imagine. Now, mate, less of that, more on this performance, because there were so many variables that were happening throughout this game that I think, first of all, coming up against Manchester City is nothing to sort of, we said that it was potentially a free hit for Stevie, but this is now the third game where he himself and his Aston Villa team have really given it a good go against Manchester City. And each time I feel like we've been valued for much more than what we've got, if I'm being totally honest. And when you've got Kashi coming off injured only 20 minutes in, and you're throwing Ashley Young out there and which isn't an ideal circumstance, Ashley Young absolutely rose to the occasion. Man of the match for me, absolutely. If not Douglas Luiz or even Ollie Watkins, fantastic game. So many things immediately going against you, mate. To put in the kind of performance that we did, it was spirited. It was hard fought. The boys earned that. And, I tweeted about it earlier, mate, but I kind of feel like when your backs are against the wall and when you're kind of looking around for that bit of inspiration, for Ashley Young to come in the side and perform how he did and lead as he did on the pitch, mate, that kind of experience is so invaluable. And he's not going to be the guy to play 90 minutes each time. And I think even against Leicester, he probably won't even start against Leicester now, when I think he may deserve it, to be honest, especially if Kashi is struggling a bit with a little niggling injury. But that kind of leadership when the chips are down and, against Arsenal, I think there were spells where we played okay, mate, but generally the past 4 games, we've just been the players have been looking to themselves and going, how are we going to pick ourselves up from this situation? How are things going to get better? Ash came in and led by example, man. Absolutely pocketed Phil Foden. And, one of the many men of the matches for me, mate, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah. Shout out to Ash, man. You actually forget that, you saw him play and he came in at right back, and you forget that, that's the side that he should technically play on. Obviously, we're so used to him coming in and filling at left back, but then you see his right foot and you're like, oh, yeah, that's how football works, isn't it? So, he was really impressive when he came into that role, and it's not one that he's played a lot, because, as I said, he has mostly filled in at left back. But yeah, a really solid performance from him. Exactly what you'd want from your club captain. Really helped us out, and I think he drove from the back, and it's so nice to see him come in and put in that performance, because I was worried when Cash came off injured, because I was like you always feel like those fullback spots are probably more so than any the spot in the team where there's the biggest drop off in quality to the replacements. You know what I mean? Obviously, if we lose midfielders, you feel like, okay, there's a right, and obviously with the forward positions, we've got a lot of different options there. But those fullback spots are the positions where if you lose a player, I think Villa are most negatively affected. But Young was fantastic. Leon was great as well. Made you realise just what an asset he could be when we're talking about finishing chances. He's really one of the few players in the squad that, if a ball comes to in the box, you're actually back in to score. And that's really useful at the moment, especially when we've sort of got the striking dilemma between Ollie and Danny and everything like that. To have this player where you say, you know what, I do trust you to finish. And maybe that breakout season could finally be on the cards, mate. He's put some good numbers so far this season. And you know what, if he can back it up with another one against Leicester, a goal or assist or something like that, I think he could be in for a really good season. And I think now he's got that goal, and I think it will help him now down a spot in the first team as well. So that's good.
Mate, absolutely. The guy, it was poetry in motion, man. Everything about it. The confidence that JJ had to drive forward into a sea of Manchester City players. He ended up running into a space where he was surrounded by about 4 players, which wasn't uncommon for any situation really throughout the duration of the game. It's a wonderful ball across, and that finish from Leon is everything you could want and more. And I don't know if you saw Craig Butler's reaction, mate, on Instagram and on YouTube. Yeah. My guy was absolutely loving it. And his rant the other day, it was almost giving a Kanye breakdown on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? When he's calling out, we saw Kanye was even calling out bloody Nassef Sawiris, wasn't he, on Instagram, wasn't he? To be caught up in that drama is a whole other podcast subject, I guess. But that he was vindicated. And, we've, as crazy as Craig Butler has been, right, and you have to say, the guy is absolutely bonkers. We've been singing from his hymn sheet, to be honest, haven't we, mate? We've been big Leon Bailey fans. And he even said himself after the game, mate, Villa worked their bollocks off, and he knew as soon as that ball was coming to him that he was scoring. It's easy to say that, but he hit it with such conviction. Edison had no chance, mate. And it's nice to have that in front of the whole end as well. It's nice to see that one up close, personally, for myself. But looking at the numbers, 92% pass accuracy, only touched the ball 19 times, one shot on target, one shot off target. From Leon, and JJ as well. Didn't we say, mate, the other day, JJ, try him out left. We said this, we mentioned this in the preview. Get these quick, technical, able runners in beyond the City fullbacks, and we may, and it was asterisk, it was may have a field day. And I'm just so proud of him, mate. Ollie Watkins as well. I think he played a fantastic game. I genuinely couldn't pick anyone out, mate, for having a bad game. I'm looking at the SofaScore ratings now, and I genuinely don't think these guys watched the game.
Their ratings are always bad, aren't they, man?
Yeah,
I think it's like
6.6 for Leon Bailey. He scored the goal that salvages a point. Douglas Luiz, 6.5. We've got to talk about, mate, the one-on-one. Ashley Young was probably about 7 yards behind Kevin De Bruyne, manages to recover, wins the ball in stupendous fashion. Douglas Luiz plays a ball that defies physics because it had so much backspin on it, but it was hit with such power that it managed to just slot perfectly beyond John Stones, I think it was, and find Ollie Watkins. It's a shame he didn't score from that. That was one of the better chances in the first half from Villa. I'm so proud of the boys, mate. And at full time, it was such a relief to make it through this game. And I think we got what we deserved. I think we maybe deserved a little bit more. Obviously, there's the shocking call from the linesman to rule Coutinho offside, and it's a bit of a sticky one because, like, as soon as the whistle went, the City players did stop playing. Obviously, Coutinho scored a bit of a deflected screamer. It's a shame that we're looking at the West Ham game, mate. There's been so many VAR controversies this weekend. They've all just escaped my mind. Obviously, this wasn't a VAR issue. This was a refereeing issue. But I could have counted about 4 times in this game where Villa had a tax or that a player was marginally offside, and the linesman flagged it straight away. And they're not supposed to do that. That's not something that they should be doing. And whereas when it was City, they always let the attack play out. Which we're not one to wear tinfoil hats on this podcast, mate. But it's absolutely stinking officiating. And I think the Premier League have nailed themselves on to they want to keep things interesting at the top. And to be honest, in a week where Liverpool drew, and again, there was more VAR controversy in that to ensure that they got a point there, you would have thought that the narrative of Villa beating City would have kept the title race alive, right? Which is ultimately what they want. And I know you don't like to come on here and talk about controversial decisions, mate, but we can't not, because it was absolutely stinking.
Yeah, it was bizarre, mate. It was really bizarre. And it's one of those where it's a shame that all the City players stopped, because I think that's sort of, that's worked against us and everything like that. And I think that's why it won't be sort of one of the bigger talking points of the weekend, because they all sort of froze. It was odd. Yeah, it was bizarre, mate. But, you're sort of in this weird cycle. I was literally just having this conversation over lunch, actually, with my dad, where you're in a cycle now where you have poor standard of officiating, which means the referees get dogs abuse, which means no one wants to become a referee, which means the standard of refereeing is poor, which means people abuse the referees, which means, and you're in this loop. And at some point it's got to break. And the reason why I'm sort of like, I don't come on this podcast and abuse referees. And I'm like, because someone has to break that. Like, in order for the standard of officiating to get better, more people have to want to go into it. Like, the best possible people have to feel like comfortable. Because who would choose to be a referee? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and so it's like that. Exactly. It's a thankless. How long have we, like, it's always in football, it's like, who would want to be a ref? And so, like, the negative of that is obviously that you probably don't get the best possible people coming forward to do the job. And that you're in this weird cycle, and there's been a lot of talking about VAR and everything. And it's like VAR is not the problem. The problem is the people are using the system aren't using it properly. Like, how many times have we gone to a World Cup or a Euros and we're like, wow, VAR has been really good. And it's like, because you've got foreign officials and everything like that. And what's interesting is that almost every league, people complain about the officiating. Like, we're not in some weird Premier League bubble. It's like, it was the same in the Championship. And if you go on the continent, they're not happy with it either. And so there clearly does need something done about it. But I mean, it's difficult because you do feel we've come out of the game and maybe there was something a little bit more. But isn't that fantastic in itself? That we've come out of this game and we do feel like, hey, maybe on a different day there was a win in there somewhere. That's just fantastic. And I'm just glad that there's a bit of optimism amongst the fan base. Speaking of fans, I thought Villa Park was electric yesterday. It sounded great.
It really was.
It's been a long time since we've been able to say that, really. It's like a bit of a taboo subject, isn't it, really? But Villa Park has lost its atmosphere a little bit since things have not been great, which is totally understandable. It's not been a great place to be and everything like that. But yesterday was back to its best, and you realise what an asset it can be, and you realise just how in those difficult moments we probably do need to be there a little bit more, because no one's going to want to come play in an atmosphere like that yesterday. So it's good to come out with the game feeling like we deserve a little bit more, and it's hopefully that sort of atmosphere which fuels the fan base, fuels us going into Leicester.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. I'm just going to say it, you just got to back the boys, haven't you? You just do. We need to make some noise. And there is a bit of a difference between the home and away support. I think I'll say. I think people are just fine with I don't know how to describe it. I feel like it's just a bit stagnant in it. Something needs to change. And maybe it's because when you're away, there's fewer of you, so you end up making more noise. That's just how it is, isn't it? But something needs to be done about Villa Park, because we need to make it an absolute fortress, mate. We need to make it difficult for teams to come. And I do genuinely think that we were responsible partly for that atmosphere, because as soon as the crowd rises up, you've got players who they believe in themselves a bit more. John McGinn, massive confidence player at the moment, need to be getting behind him and supporting him. I know he's been stinking, but the players fed off our energy every time Ashley Young crunched Phil Foden. The place erupted, and that's how you get one over these teams, isn't it? It is a bit cliche, but let's back the lads. Let's make as much noise as possible, because right now the boys need it, and this could be. And I say could, this by no means dissolves any issues that we have with Steven Gerrard tactically at the moment. And, obviously we get the point, and he's straight over to the Holte end. Cameras are there, he's clapping everything, which you expect would Villa do well, which is kind of frustrating when he hasn't been doing it for the past few weeks. He's been making a beeline for the tunnel. But at the end of the day, mate, Leicester right now is the perfect opportunity. As long as Brendan Rodgers doesn't get sacked, they've just got beaten 5-2 by Brighton. What a game that was, by the way. And I'm looking at Leicester and Southampton. Anything less than 4 points is incredibly, incredibly frustrating. And I think if it's 2 losses against them two, then his head still is on the chopping block. But a performance against Manchester City, when we'd all sort of written him and Villa off, is going to go a long way. There's going to be plenty of credit in the bank after that, and we have to go to Leicester and beat them now, mate, don't we?
Yeah, well, this is the thing, mate, and I'm really excited to preview this game. But my sort of 2 cents, and this is basically my thought process is: we know Villa can play on the back foot. We know we can counter. We know we've got the players to do that. We've said that for a long time, hasn't it? Even back in the Dean Smith days, it's like Villa are better on the counter attack. The problem has always been, okay, when Villa dominate the ball, when we can be the side on the offensive, can we break sides down? Can we be the dominant force in the game? That's where the question marks are. And so that's why, my sort of point earlier on in the podcast is when you're sort of forced to play a certain way against Manchester City if you want to go and get a result. Because it's totally different playing City at the Etihad to playing City at home. You go to the Etihad and it's like almost acceptable to put 11 men behind the ball. And even when you go behind, just treat it as damage limitation and just see how far into the 90 minutes you can get without conceding. However, when you play them at home, there is an expectation that you have to go out and at least try. And so that's what I mean in terms of like, we did a very good job of it, but we did a very good job of something which you don't have much of a choice in doing. Whereas against Leicester, it's totally different because we will be expected to be on the front foot. They're in poor form. And look, there is a sort of side of me that says that won't carry on forever. They will get results. They're not going to go. I don't think this Leicester team is going to go down, so they'll get results somewhere. So how long are they going to go on this sort of streak of losses? I don't think I would be surprised if they sacked Brendan Rodgers. Probably less so than I was after they conceded 5 against Brighton. That's sort of, I think, damaged him. I genuinely did think back him, maybe not so now. And it would be just our luck for them to sack him. And then it's a completely different, a completely different beast, isn't it? Because everything that you thought you knew goes straight out the window. So hopefully they hold on to him for one more week. But the big question mark is, can Villa go there, play on the front foot, be the dominant force and get a win? If we can, I think this season looks totally different.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And before we go, is there a legitimate argument for Villa being a better side without both Coutinho and Buendia?
Mate,
is that me being short-sighted, or
I
genuinely 90 minutes?
I genuinely don't know. I think we have so dependent on the opposition. I would have called you a madman for saying that a couple of weeks ago, especially Buendia. Not so much Coutinho, but Buendia. But after that performance, who knows, mate? There is an argument for JJ sort of playing on the left now, and I really did refuse that before. I didn't like that idea.
Yeah,
but he occupies that space quite well and did well for the assist yesterday, it must be said. And we've lost JJ in those positions, it feels. We haven't seen so much of him in those forward spots. And when he does, he's usually cash money. And so, yeah, mate, maybe I'm really looking forward to this preview. A lot of good angles and everything like that. And give me a few days to think about that, and I'll give you an answer in the preview, mate.
Absolutely, guys. I'm so buzzing. I'm trying not to let that just the poor officiating ruin the feeling I had at full time and the feeling that I've still got, man, because I'm so proud of the boys. And we're not, again, this doesn't dissolve any issues that both of us have with Steven Gerrard. It's important to caveat that with. But could this be the start, the resurrection, the Arteta moment that Gabriel Bonloa has been saying that we've been due? I don't know. But a win against Leicester, and I think all is forgotten about nearly. So we'll talk about that obviously in a few days' time. Absolutely buzzing to be doing a preview for once, like you said, mate. If you guys are new around here, hit a like. I think we're close to passing 5,600 subscribers now, which is a little bit mental. The growth on the channel over the past few weeks has been mad. We're 8 off 5,600. So if you're watching and you're not subscribed, make sure you do so. Check out OneFootball in the top link of the description. It helps Dan and I out more than you can imagine.
Yes, sir.
And leave a comment. Let us know how you're feeling about that one, guys. I'm absolutely buzzing. Up the Villa.